Hello friends, now we'll have to talk of another literary device that is very useful in literature and that makes literature somehow complicated, complex. It is allusion. Allusion. Please don't be confused with illusion. Illusion is something else. Illusion. Illusion is something that we think of by seeing something else. See, for example, in the night when full moon is there, but somehow we cannot perceive a particular object in the night, we can have an illusion of something else, as we sometimes see a rope as a snake in the time of night. That is illusion. But here when we talk of allusion, allusion, it is a literary device used in literature. So what is allusion? See, allusion is a noun. So this noun is made from a verb, that is to allude. What is the meaning of allude? A-L-L-U-D-E. It means to make indirect reference. So point should be noted that we have to talk of references. So allusion is all about references, but that is not direct, that is indirect. See, when we talk of the pronunciation of the word direct or indirect, we have both the pronunciations. We say direct or direct, we can say indirect or indirect. All are correct. So allusion is a noun made from the verb allude, which means to make indirect reference. When we talk of the definition given by M.H. Abrams, allusion is a passing reference without explicit identification. Means it is not clear. It's not clear to a literary or historical person, place or event, or to another literary work or passage. See, red ink will suggest you which are the terms those are needed to be remembered. It's a passing reference and no explicit identification is there. And this reference can be literary, this can be historical. And when we talk of historical, then we can talk of a person or a place or event. These all can be contextualized in a different manner as an allusion or to another literary work or passage, or sometimes other literary work is also being referenced indirectly. And that there is another word in modern criticism that is called intertextuality. That is also somehow a term concerned with allusion, where we have several references of other texts in a particular text. The supreme example of which is The Wasteland. We'll talk about it later. So here we can have the references of any historical person. So it means even we can talk of myths as well. So mythologies are also being referenced, especially biblical mythology. We always have in English literature. Greek mythology. Places, some places are very important in the description. When we talk of biblical description or biblical allusion, then we can remember John Milton, his depiction of the mountain, or his depiction of that Mose, M-O-S-E, in his Paradise Lost. And even when we talk of Paradise Lost, the whole story is about the biblical myth. When we talk of historical person, then we can have example of Adam and Eve. We can have the example of Saturn. Even in Dr. Faustus, when you talk of Mephistopheles or the Lucifer, he is none other than Saturn himself. Place, for example, Jerusalem or Jerusalem, whatever we can say. Now the capital city of Israel, which is famous place for the birth of Jesus Christ. These places are very well depicted, very frequently depicted in the different works of literature. So that also can be considered as an allusion or event. See, even when you talk of for example, when you talk of the wasteland, there is the chapter there as a game of chess. The game of chess, the title itself is taken from that game of chess that we see in Middleton's Women Beware Women, a drama. So this is how we can have references from different historical persons, places, events, or to another literary work. See, for example, when you talk of the depiction of a modern woman sitting and being prepared in the wasteland that we see, that reminds us of Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. Being not explicitly identified, allusions imply a fund of knowledge that is shared by an author and the audience for whom the author writes. See, it's very interesting. It reminds me of rasa theory as well, where there is the need of a person, an audience, who should be that much intellectual enough to appreciate the rasa. And for him, Bharat Muni says, Bharat uses the word sahridaya, means the person must know how to appreciate the rasa, how to appreciate the text or the presentation. In the similar manner, when we talk of allusion, when it is being used by an author, it is expected that the allusion that the writer is making should be known to the audience. Means audience must be well acquainted of that particular allusion so that he or she can identify that, so that he or she can understand what the writer is talking about. So a fund of knowledge is very much needed. It is applicable for both. It is needed for the writer as well as for the reader, or as well as for the audience. Most literary allusions are intended for contemporary audience. See, when we talk of this, generally it happens that allusions are there they talk of contemporary things, and that is why the readers or the audience of the contemporary writer, means when a writer is writing something, the society that he is having, the people of that society, when they read the writer's work, they can understand particular allusion, depicted in his text, in his or her text. They understand because they are of the same age. I mean era. They belong to the same era, they belong to the same time. That is why they are aware of the things, of the contemporary things. So the allusions concerning with contemporary things are very well understood by the contemporary people, and this is mostly used. See, for example, when we talk of Sir Philip Sidney, the depiction that he has in his poem, there we find the reference of the contemporary society, which was well understood by his own society. If we talk of another example, the Rape of the Lock, the depiction that is there of of Belinda or that Baron, of course it is a mock epic, and there we find satire, but it is reality of the contemporary society. That particular incident took place there in Pope's era, in Pope's time. The people, when they learned that, when the people started reading the Rape of the Lock, they could understand it very well, because they could perceive, they could connect it with their previous knowledge of that particular incident which took place in their time. So it generally happens that most literary allusions are intended for contemporary audience, but some are very specialized one, or drawn from author's private reading and experience. So some allusions are also there which is which comes with the reading of the writer. When a writer reads some other author, he finds something useful for his own writing, and he alludes it. So that allusion comes in his work. When we talk of some of the great writers concerning with allusion, who used allusion very well in their writings, in the Elizabethan era we have one person, Thomas Nash, then Alexander Pope, we talked about it, John Milton, again in his Paradise Lost, in his Paradise Regained, and other such sort of works where he uses biblical allusions. William Wordsworth, he also uses allusion in his poetry. Philip Sidney, we talked about him. James Joyce, see, for example, when we talk of the novel Ulysses, the title itself suggests the allusion that he is talking of Odysseus or the Ulysses. Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Thomas Stern Eliot, who got Nobel Prize in 1948, and others. When we talk of T.S. Eliot, see, he is considered to be a very difficult poet. So we can talk of one perspective, one aspect of his being difficult today. Much of T.S. Eliot's long-standing reputation as a difficult poet owes to his tendency to harsh and overbearing allusion. So several allusions are being used in a particular text by T.S. Eliot. When you talk of Gerontion, when you talk of the first poem published by T.S. Eliot, Love Song of Gelfred Purfoy, even there we have the reference of Michelangelo. Women come and go talking of Michelangelo. So Michelangelo was not present at that very time, was not contemporary artist, but is being referenced in the first poem of modern poetry, as it is said. It was published in 1913, and the beginning of modern poetry is considered to be from that very time. See, so we see that he is a difficult poet because one aspect of his being difficult is his tendency of using harsh and overbearing allusion. See, for example, when we talk of his The Wasteland, it can be taken as the supreme example of a text replete with several allusions. When we talk of myths, see, several myths are there. I am talking of some of them. For example, Holy Grail, or the myth of Sibyl, Sibyl, Holy Grail, Holygrail, Tiresias, 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 and Philomela, Phelomila. See, and other myths are also there. I'm not talking of those myths. For understanding the wasteland, it is very much needed that we should be acquainted with all these myths. Those are present there in this particular text. We'll talk about some of them. Now, if we try to correlate how allusions, help us to understand the text in better manner. When we talk of the beginning lines of The Wasteland, as you know, The Wasteland is divided into 5 sections. The first one is the burial of the dead. The second one is game of chess. The third one is fire sermon. The fourth one is death by water. The fifth one is what the thunder said. When we talk of the first section, the burial of the dead, the beginning line of the first section means the beginning line of The Wasteland, and it's a very famous line. April is the cruelest month. See, I have used red pen for April, so April is to be emphasized here. April is the cruelest month. So when we are not aware of the allusion, we can discuss of April in a different manner. But when we can perceive the allusion to this particular line, which makes us connected to the first poet of English, who is considered to be morning star of English poetry, none other than Geoffrey Chaucer. When you talk of his Prologue to the Canterbury Tales, see how that particular poem begins. Means we can say the first line of the first English poem, how that is being connected with the first line of a modern poem. So when we talk of Prologue to the Canterbury Tales, it begins with, when that April with his short suite than longer folk to go on pilgrimages. This is in medieval English, Middle English. When we talk of its modern translation, we can understand it in a better manner, that I have written here. When in April the sweet showers fall, then folk do long to go on pilgrimage. Think about it. There are some more lines in between, that is why I have used these 3 dots here. When in April the sweet showers fall, then folk do long to go on pilgrimage. Means there was the time in the 14th century when Chaucer was there. What was the condition of the people? Even if we find in the later lines that church was very much corrupted at that very time, and that's why we find satire, irony and humor there in Chaucer's poetry. But it was the fact that the people of that time, the people of 14th century, were more religious. They believed in church authority. They believed in church supremacy. They believed in God. In 14th century, when April used to come, the people used to plan to go on some pilgrimage. As we see in the context of Canterbury Tales, the people from different corners of England are preparing themselves for going to the shrine of Thomas a Becket, Saint Thomas a Becket. Means they are being ready for going on some pilgrimage. They are doing some work for the divine purpose. This is what they do. This was what they used to do in April, because April is considered to be a very good month for them in England. But here, when we talk of 20th century England, since The Wasteland was published in 1922, and one should remember that this Wasteland was written after First World War. So we see the effect of the World War as well on this poetry, The Wasteland. So in 20th century, we have to talk of the time 6 centuries later after Chaucer. So in 20th century, when this April comes, this becomes cruelest month. So this ironic allusion, we have to understand the difference, why this difference has taken place. Why the April, which was the month of pilgrimage, has now become the cruelest month, because now spirituality is lost. The people are more concerned with the materialistic approaches. They don't bother for preparing themselves to go on some pilgrimage. In fact, rather, they are preparing themselves for going on picnic. So the center is shifted from God to the, not only on the man, but you can say on man's materialistic approaches. Because when we talk of man in center, humanism will come. And that was a movement, a great movement in the time of Renaissance, humanism. Here we see that the people are becoming more materialistic. The need of rejuvenation is there, that Eliot seeks for. So this is how, when we are aware of allusion, we can connect the text in a better manner. See, for example, when we talk of the song of the hermit thrush in final movement of The Wasteland, there we find the description of a hermit thrush, and that clearly alludes, even Eliot did not accept it, but it is the fact. It clearly alludes to Whitman's When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed. As you know, this is an elegy written by Whitman when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So that depiction of hermit thrush in the ending lines, nearly ending lines of The Wasteland, we see that how this is very well alluded, means they can remind you of Whitman's When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed. So this was some example of allusions in The Wasteland. As I was talking of some of the myths let's talk of two myths that we see here in the wasteland. And for this picture, for these two pictures that I'm going to deal with, I thank to Vanita for her presentation that I have found on slide share. Sibyl, S-I-B-Y-L. What is the myth of Sibyl? Sibyl, a woman with the prophetic power. See, she was prophetic, means she could tell the future. Who ages but never dies. See the irony with her, means she gets older and older by and by, but she does not die. Looks at the future and proclaims that she only wants to die. And see the irony of this myth, mythological person, the Sibyl. Only one wish that she is having now, she wants to die, and that I quote, that is in quotation here, I want to die. So this is the only wish that she is having, Sibyl. She typifies the time-woven soul's desire to escape from the wheel of thing, that is nirvana, moksha or salvation. So in this manner one can talk of her as the typical soul's desire to move from this physical world, means the ultimate goal that we talk of, that the ultimate goal of soul, to meet the oversoul. Atma wants to be united with Paramatma. For that she can be taken as a symbol. The Sibyl's predicament mirror what Eliot sees as his own. He lives in a culture that has decayed. See, now she is very old, and that old age has brought the ugliness to her. So in the similar manner we can see that Eliot sees his own predicament in Sibyl's, because he thinks that he lives in a culture that has decayed, as I was talking of the depiction. That is why he is saying April is the cruelest month. The culture that has decayed and withered but will not expire, and he thinks that it is at its worst position. But is there any expectation? Is there any hope that it will be ended? And B is forced to live with reminders of its former glory. And and in that manner, when one's present is very bad and one is not having any other option, so one is bound to live with the happier moments of past. So one is compelled to live with the past glory, not with the present's condition. This is how Eliot is using the myth of Sibyl in his epigraph. When you will read The Wasteland, you will find the epigraph there in the beginning. Epigraph is generally a kind of quotation from other text or other readings to tell the theme of the particular work. So this was about Sibyl. Now let's talk of Tiresias. Tiresias is a son of shepherd. See, here we are having a word shepherd. Its pronunciation is not shepherd, it is shepherd. So Tiresias is a son of shepherd 7-year blind, transfer into woman by Hera. So Hera is Jupiter's wife, the wife of Jove, or you can say Zeus. She cursed him to be blind, and that is how he became blind. Actually, Hera and Zeus both were, having discussion or debate, you can say, that which one, male or female, gets more pleasure in the time of sex, and they were having debate on that, and that's why when they were unable to decide, they called for Tiresias, because Tiresias was the person who had both the experiences. That's why they thought that he can tell. And ultimately Tiresias was with the view of Zeus. So Hera became furious, and ultimately she cursed him to be blind. See, Tiresias is represented as a bisexual in the wasteland. And there is another story for his becoming bisexual, how his sex was changed, how he threw some pebbles on the snakes who were busy in their physical pleasure. Tiresias is represented as a bisexual in the wasteland as he was blind, but he has the gift of prophecy and immorality. Not immorality, that there should be immortality. Immortality means he was immortal. This one is wrong here. So see, since he was with the opinion of Zeus, so ultimately he got gift from Zeus. His wife was cursing, and he blessed him that, oh, even if you are blind, you can see, you can foresee the future. So he became prophet, and he became immortal as well. Tiresias, a figure from classical mythology who was both male and female features and is blind but can see into the future. So this is something that I wanted to tell you about Tiresias and Sibyl. Now move to the next point, next example of allusion. There is some lines by Yeats in his one poem called Easter 1916, and I quote, "And what if excess of love bewildered them till they died? And what if excess of love bewildered them till they died?" So this phrase, excess of love, reminds us of Shelley's poem Alaster, where poet is sickened with excess of love. When we can correlate, when we can connect, then we can get a better explanation of this. After catching allusion from Shelley, our sense of Yeats's feelings about recklessness, both political and amorous, are enriched. So this is how we can have some more thoughts after connecting a particular allusion to its original reference. So this is how allusions are very effective devices in literature, and of course when a poet or a writer uses several allusions, that shows somehow that he or she is very well read, and only then they can talk of several other things those are depicted or told in other texts or other myths. That's all. Thank you.